한국이나 아시아의 스타트업들이 실리콘밸리에서 성장하는 데는 여러 가지 어려움이 있는데요. 이게 단지 언어나 문화적 문제만은 아닐 텐데 오늘 눔의 정세주 대표님, 500 스타트업의 크리스틴 사이, 쿨아이리스의 수자니아 붐카, 타파스 미디어의 김창원 대표님께서 펼치는 패널 토의를 통해서 이들만의 비밀을 알아볼까 합니다. 진행에는 트랜슬링크 캐피탈의 음재훈 대표님께서 수고해 주시겠습니다. 자, 그럼 연사분들 무대 위로 모셔볼까요? 여러분 큰 박수 환영합니다.
예, 여러분 안녕하세요. 트랜슬링크 캐피탈사의 음재훈이라고 합니다. 저희는 실리콘밸리 베이스로 주로 미국에 있는 업체에 투자하는 벤처 캐피탈사인데 이번 비론치 행사, 좋은 행사에 이렇게 참여할 수 있어서 대단히 기쁘게 생각합니다. 여기 이제 여러분들 오신 패널리스트 분들이 외국에서 오신 분들이라 진행평이상 제가 영어로 진행을 하도록 하겠습니다. So I just gave a brief introduction in Korean. Well, first of all, thank you very much for braving the travel all the way out here. I know Soujanya's case, he traveled literally 24 hours from one part of the world to actually get out here. I think we have a very interesting panel today for the audience. We're very fortunate to have a mix of entrepreneurs that have very strong connections in Asia. 3 of the panelists have actually started companies in Silicon Valley and in New York in the US, having Asian roots out of Korea and India. And we also have Christine, who has started her own venture capital firm at 500 Startups. And so we have a very interesting assortment of entrepreneurs here that would love to share their experiences with the audience today. And so I think one of the first topics, going back to the topic of the panel today, is the cracking the Silicon Valley code. And so one of the first questions that I think would be of interest to the audience, so what is the big deal about Silicon Valley? Why is it such a magnet to attract entrepreneurial talent from literally all over the world? And maybe you can add your personal experiences with that as you introduce yourselves. Why don't we start with Saeju over here?
Korean? English? I'm the victim because I sit right next to you, so I have to speak first. Right? I think the Silicon Valley is my company, we are in New York City, and most of the service we cover like in North America and in Korea right now. But speaking of Silicon Valley, as a Korean, I'm Korean, and I have no idea about what's the Silicon Valley and Palo Alto like that, even like before we get the fund. But when we raised the fund in the beginning, I had to travel to Silicon Valley. I didn't deal with the Silicon Valley people at the West Coast in the beginning, but I figured out people want to invest in our company, then I had to fly over there and meet the people. And I realized not only money is there are a lot of smart people in the industry like Google, our partners, and like business partners over there. So I felt like there was over 3 days staying in Silicon Valley area. I was feeling like it's like an A to Z one shop, and I could meet investors, business partners, and the talent that I want to hire. So that was easy for me, and that was convenient. And the people, money, and media all in there. That's why Silicon Valley is like always an option that I have to stop by whenever I travel.
Great. So Soujanya, by the way, Soujanya is the founder and CEO of a very interesting Silicon Valley startup called CoolIris. And as I mentioned earlier, he traveled all the way from a different part of the world to be here today. The easiest way to remember Soujanya's name is Soju. So that's what he'd like to be remembered here in Korea by, Soju. And I'm sure he'll have a lot more to talk about after tonight.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity, by the way. It's really awesome to be here. I consider Seoul to be a very vibrant city, and it's really, really great to be here with you guys. So it doesn't matter how long you travel, the energy, I draw it from you guys. So CoolIris, I'll just give a 10-second plug to the company. We are the creators of the Android Gallery app, and more recently we've brought media and messaging together on iPhone, and we have over 1 billion photos now connected in the application. To answer the question more succinctly here, the way we think about Silicon Valley is not so much about it being a geography. John Doerr actually says it very, very truly, and so in my mind, that Silicon Valley is more of a state of mind. And we believe, we at CoolIris, that it truly is the mindset, and the mindset genuinely believes that the risk of not trying what you genuinely believe in is much, much higher than the cost of giving it a shot. And you will feel even more shitty and as a loser if somebody else tries it. So it's less about a geography, it's more about the passion to bring it to the world, a really meaningful difference to the world with an underlying business model, because it's not a social cause, and having fun doing it. So my definition, or our definition at CoolIris of Silicon Valley, is slightly perhaps different than what most people think it to be. So there's no reason why Silicon Valley cannot exist in other parts of the world.
Good point, Soujanya. How about you, Christine? What's your story?
Hi, so I'm a partner at 500 Startups, which is a seed fund based in Silicon Valley. We also run a startup accelerator program. We are based in the Valley, but we actually are quite international. I think about maybe 20-25% of our portfolio is from outside of the US. We've invested in a number of companies in Asia, mostly in Japan and the Chinese-speaking countries. We do have one investment in a Korean company, Shaker Media, which presented at the Startup Battle yesterday. I guess why, from my perspective, why Silicon Valley is such a draw. I mean, I kind of liken it to why most aspiring actors will want to come to Hollywood. Silicon Valley is the home of a lot of amazing tech companies, companies that were once startups and now have become global brands like Google, Apple. If you go back to the hardware companies like Intel, excuse me, I'm a little bit sick, sorry. Intel, Microsoft, etc. And nowadays, Facebook, Twitter, Zynga, Pinterest, Quora. So a lot of these companies were born in Silicon Valley, and they've become, global. And many of you in the audience are probably users. So I think because of that, and because the ecosystem is so developed in terms of mentors and other companies like other startups, so many startups in the Valley and investment money. That's sort of what's, from my perspective, what has attracted everyone. They think, Silicon Valley, if you're running a startup, that's where you need to be if you want to get access to the right people to help you grow your company, hiring people, investors. So I don't believe you have to necessarily come to the Valley to be successful. There's obviously plenty of companies that have stayed in their home markets and have become successful, but it really just depends on what your goals are and your ambitions are for the company. If you do really want to be a global company, and if to you global means winning in the US, then you have to be in the US, or you have to have some presence in the US. But for some companies, their ambitions are really maybe to win in Asia or to win in Southeast Asia. So it really depends on your company's mission.
Thanks, Christine. I think, Chang, you have a lot to talk about on this topic.
Sure. 저도 한국 사람입니다. 근데 진행상 영어로 못하는 영어지만 하도록 하겠습니다. So my name is Chang, and I'm a founder of a company called Tapas Media. So we're a new Silicon Valley-based company, and we're trying to build a platform for serialized webcomics and visual stories. And the backstory, obviously, there is we're trying to globalize the Korean webtoons model outside of Korea. So how many of you are reading Naver down webtoons here? 웹툰 보시는 분 계신가요? Yeah, so obviously it's very popular in Korea, and we're trying to globalize that. And Silicon Valley, so I moved to Silicon Valley in 2010, so I'm probably the newest person to Silicon Valley here. But the first thing, the most striking thing for me when I went to Silicon Valley was the density of the founders, startup founders. So it's really funny because when you're trying to sell your car or trying to buy something from Craigslist, what do you do? And most people say, oh, I'm a startup person. or working at a high-tech companies. So just the pure density of people that are working in the startup industry, was one of the most striking things for me for Silicon Valley.
Okay, well, thank you, Chang. And I think one of the natural questions that come out of the Silicon Valley question, especially addressing the audience here in Korea, is if you're a Korean entrepreneur, a Korean startup, does it make sense to try to move out to Silicon Valley? And if so, when? What are some of the things that entrepreneurs should consider before they actually make that move? I think we have, again, a great panel with folks that actually have a lot of experience around this, and I'm sure you have some very strong opinions about this. So, I'll switch it around this time, Saeju, and start with Chang.
Yeah, I'll take this first. We did a little bit of backstage thing, but I think I can take this question. So, the first thing that I would like to say is, like Christine just said, not everyone has to come to Silicon Valley. Because one thing that was really interesting to me was, this is what actually Han Kim of Altos, is Han around the audience? I'm not sure, but this is what he said, which I found really interesting, was if you compare the top 10 cities of Korea and the US, in terms of population and spending power, they're pretty similar. Obviously US is a big country with a lot more people and a lot more spending power, I guess. But if you just compare the cities, especially the top 10 cities, Korean top 10 cities and US top 10 cities are pretty similar. So that means if your business is targeting for, let's say, city people, right? Whether it's on social commerce or generally transaction-based services, it does make sense to start in your own home market, try to own the market and try to go outside of your market. So the point I'm trying to make is it really depends on what kind of business you're in. So there's no a single cut, one size fits all theory for whether or not you have to come to Silicon Valley. But in terms of if you think it makes more sense to come to Silicon Valley, then like Jay I think said in the backstage, it definitely makes sense to come there early and try to fail fast. So one of the things that people in Silicon Valley say is fail fast. So what you do as an entrepreneur is to put your theory in practice and then try to see if that model works or not. So instead of planning for 3 years, 5 years, and try to wait for the perfect moment, I think it definitely makes more sense to come early and try to experience and build a network and try to launch something fast and try to see if that works or not.
Thanks. Christine?
Yeah, I totally agree. As an entrepreneur, time is always your enemy. Time kills deals. Time, that's why it's in your interest to try to move fast, not be afraid to make mistakes and learn from them, take risks. And if you are building a business that is going to just target the Korean market, or maybe beyond that, Asia, then maybe coming to the Valley doesn't make that much sense. I think the challenge that we've seen with a lot of entrepreneurs who are international, a lot of them may come to the US, they go through our program, for example, and it helps them in that it suddenly makes them very hot in their home country, so they're able to raise money locally. But they do run into some challenges raising money in Silicon Valley. And so, they do get a lot of mentorship in terms of different areas of their business and, access to the right people. But I think, whether you come early or you wait a little bit and come later, again, it really depends on what you're building. But I would say if you have any ambition of being something global or, being in the U.S. and you don't want to see yourselves as something that's just for the Korean market, then yeah, by all means, if you can make it to Silicon Valley, even if it's just for, say, being in part of an accelerator program or just being there temporarily, I think it makes a lot of sense to come out here. And I'll just, give you context. We have a number of companies that come from, other parts of the world just to be part of our accelerator program. And sometimes they don't have a lot of time to decide, so they literally, hear from us saying they get an offer, and then a week later, they find some way to get to the U.S. They're hopping around, staying in various like Airbnb rooms, but they find a way to get here, and they have hustle to make it to the Valley. And then once they're here, to really make the most out of their time. So I think that hunger and that real kind of drive is what makes that's what will make entrepreneurs successful, and that's what I think. Particularly for Korean entrepreneurs as well, if you're looking to get to the Valley, then that's what you really need. And you shouldn't wait, because kind of holding back and being conservative, it's not going to really get you anywhere.
Let me ask a different question. So, we talked about what are the criteria to consider making that decision to move to Silicon Valley and when. Let's assume that an entrepreneur or a startup has made that decision and they're coming out to the Valley. And this is a question that I'd like to ask Saeju and Soju. Tell us a little bit about what would you advise to an entrepreneur based upon your experience, having gone through the trial and error of having done that, for somebody that just has arrived in Silicon Valley, would like to start a company. How should they go about it?
죄송합니다. 제가 소개를 안 했습니다. 아까 전에. 저는 룸의 정세주라고 하고요. 지금 저도 전라도 여수 촌놈인데 미국 가서 영어 많이 배워가지고 영어로 좀 하겠습니다. 오늘. 근데 이 자리에 서게 돼서 영광이고요. 되게 감사하게 생각하고 있습니다. 저희는 we are making the wellness technology company from based in Manhattan, New York City, right? So Silicon Valley, I wasn't that familiar about Silicon Valley before my company was past literally seed stage and enter into growing stage. I had to travel. I realized I had traveled to Silicon Valley very often. It's not by my will, because I was invited and I have to be there. And I built a network, and now I work with all the great partners. So I want to advise, I don't want to say advice, but because I also am learning right now over trial and error. But what I learned almost is like I heard over and over from other my friends and the CEO friends, they say, Saeju, I want to come to America or going global. And they say, I will hire people so they can start the business in America. But I don't think it's going to be working, to be honest, because imagine there is a company from a third country and they had like maybe 12 people, 10 people, and they're powerful at their local market and come to Korea to do business in Korea. Would you like to join the company? Think about it, right? I don't think I will join because it's not a cool company. The company is like they are using their own the mother language, which is not Korean, and they speak their language and they have their things. They don't drink soju. They drink probably different and they like it. It's not fun. So it's really hard to invite people. So what I've learned is like going global is like you have to start from the beginning, because once you reach more than 10 employees, company culture set. The company culture is very important, and it's really hard to change or adopt new things. For instance, again, you have, from American perspective, let's assume you guys are all American. There is a company from Korea, very strong. 10 Korean people come to America, want to hire a white guy. It's going to be very difficult because it's not fun. It's not a cool company anymore. And these guys will have a hard time to find the talent, and that's a big problem. And from the beginning of the company, you build a network and the partners. It's like growing together with the society. And once you reach like out of the seed stage from Korea, your company has so many regions you cannot come out because you are already busy building product, customer service, investor relationship, and launching new service. At the same time, you're launching new service for America. It's not going to be easy. So I think starting from the beginning, because we all know entrepreneurship is damn hard. It's really hectic. Every day is busy. If you all know about it, just start from the beginning for the global market. Come to America and start it from there. Once you build enough network and you know about the market, I think you are in a better position to go to global, like in Asia or South Asia like that, or Europe. You have a better choice because you are already connected with the people.
Thank you, Saeju. Soju, go ahead.
Sure. So I'll address it from both talent side and maybe financing side. First thing, by the way, so to assume that you have already landed there, make sure you have a product that you've already built before you show up, because the moment you show up in Silicon Valley, the first thing you realize is it's so hard to find talent, and even if you find, then to retain talent. So I don't want to make this sound like, oh, come to Silicon Valley and your problems are solved, because your problems are just going to start beginning the moment you land there. Would you agree? Yeah. So what that means is you got to focus on talent acquisition first, even before user acquisition if you haven't launched your product. And talent acquisition starts by you being close to a Stanford or a Berkeley if you're coming to the Bay Area. So we have a rule in the company, we do not want our offices to be any more than biking distance from either of these universities. Today we are at Stanford. And it's really, really important because the first time as a part of our seed funding, when we raised only $1 million, we were 8 of us full-time, and we had 40 interns from Stanford helping us. And this wasn't for cost reasons. This was really leveraging the student energy because they brought some amazing perspectives. So think about it from a talent perspective. You've got to be close to where the talent houses are. And assuming that the nature of the startups that we're discussing here are more digital and more mobile, you've got to be close to campuses. That's one. Number two is on the financing side. There's a saying which probably most of you know, that if you ask for money, you get advice, and if you ask for advice, you get money. So I don't know if, Jay, you agree with that or not. But the truth is, don't just think that, oh, I have to start a company, so I have to raise money. We took a very different approach. We said it has to be a partnership, not a financing round. And every single financing partner who came in helped us take the company to the next level. You're going to face the same thing even when you come in at a seed level. So you make sure that you stay engaged even before you have launched, say, the product. The great thing about Silicon Valley is investors are very, very open. You can actually reach out. You can reach out to Jay, and I highly recommend that after this, I know he's going to run, but he will be back.
I've paid him.
And you make sure that you get to talk to him, and that's where the seeding of the network starts. Make sure you talk to Christine here, and that's how you really get to go. I mean, be shameless. I mean, I really mean it. Be shameless, because you're going to ask, you're going to get your meeting, and the network then starts. And when you have a product, they are going to email you rather than you having to email them. And I think that's really how you want to think about this.
Thanks again, Saeju, for the great advice. I think that one of the themes that is very important, and I'm going to test this with the audience, is this whole shameless concept. I know typical Koreans would like to just sit back and listen into these panels and discussions and keynotes. But what we'd really like to do, and what typically happens in Silicon Valley, is to have the audience engage and become interactive. We don't have a lot of time, but I'm sure we'll have enough time to squeeze in 1 or 2 questions at the end. I would like to challenge the audience to be shameless enough to stand up and ask the question that you would like to have the panel address. And feel free to ask in Korean. I'd be happy to translate for the panelists, because I think it's really important. It's very rare to get this opportunity. Each and every one of these panelists have a tremendous amount of experience and have gone through a path that you may be considering going through in the next month, year, couple of years out. Don't lose this opportunity. So I really encourage people to step up and think about the questions. So I'm going to buy you a little more time by asking 1 or 2 more questions, but I hope that we can get at least 1 or 2 questions from the audience. As a Korean person, I'll be very disappointed if we don't have at least a couple of questions, okay? Not a threat, just a request. So I think while we're buying some time here for the audience, I think a topic that all of us could talk about would be, what are some of the best practices that we've seen over the years? And, we've directly experienced, Christine, you've seen a lot of companies, obviously. In terms of one of the biggest topics, probably the couple of biggest topics, really, and I think, Saeju has addressed one of them as talent acquisition. The other one was obviously raising capital. At the end of the day, the business is built on 2 pillars. One is money, the other is people. So let's talk about the money side a little bit, and maybe we'll start with Christine. When you see all these startups come in front of you to pitch, what are some of the things that you've seen that really work and are compelling, and what are some of the things that you say try to avoid as an entrepreneur pitching to you?
Well, what usually really stands out at the stage that we invest in, which is pretty early, is the people, the founders. For us, even for the accelerator program, so we actually invest in companies just through seed rounds, and then we also invest in companies that want to go through our accelerator program, and they're separate. We do expect that the entrepreneur actually has a product and a company. We don't invest on an idea or a napkin like business plan. But I think what really stands out at the end of the day is going to be the team and the founders. If we see that they are very passionate about what they're building, they are actually solving a problem. I think that's actually a big thing. We like investing in companies that are solving a very clear problem for a clear customer and have a way to make money, even if they're not actually making money at the time that we talk to them, but they have a very clear plan on what their revenue model is going to look like. So I think the big thing is, at least I think about all the companies that we've funded and I get the question a lot, like what has stood out about the companies that have become successful or look like they're going to become successful. And I think a lot of it really just goes back to the founders. There are a lot of founders who are very good hackers or love to build product, but when it comes to, say, building a team, raising money, that's kind of a weakness for them. And the companies that, at least personally, that I've seen or invested in that I think they're on a trajectory to do well, those founders have been the ones who understand the importance of building a team, having relationships, building relationships with potential partners, potential hires, investors. Those are the ones I think that really have stood out. Because the fail rate is so high, probably maybe 80% of the companies that we've invested in probably will fail. That's a known fact, and that's probably how it is for most, venture capital. But the people who understand that, if you're a startup founder or CEO, your job is to build a team that will build this, business and this product, versus you're just this, founder or CEO that's building a product and not really thinking about, attracting a team, building a brand. It's the former that really, I think, stands out for me.
Christine, since we're running tight on time, I'd like the other entrepreneurs on the panel to maybe just bring up one or two anecdotes of things based upon your own fundraising experience that worked really well and perhaps didn't work well. Chang?
I think by way of answering that question, I also wanted to add quickly to what Soujanya said about the shamelessness and growing a thick skin, and I think that can actually answer both questions. So one, I guess, tip or advice that I can give to the audience is, as Korean people, I'm a Korean person too. We're all afraid about the failure and losing face. That's just part of the Korean culture. And but startup or entrepreneurialism is all about growing thick skin and generally what they call hustling. So our company is a 500 startup company, and I go to demo days, and I'm sure a lot of people in this room speak better English than some of the presenters in the demo day, because a lot of people are coming from overseas. So a lot of Korean people are afraid about, what if I speak a bad English, and what if I leave a bad impression? You don't have to worry too much about it, as long as your product solves a real problem. And in general, I think you have to grow thick skin and just do a lot of hustling. So that's how I just wanted to add quickly to the shamelessness thing. So
thanks, Chang.
I guess one quick anecdote would be have a product in the market, and if that's for whatever reason expensive or time-wise hard to build, at least have a prototype. Lose the PowerPoint. I think that's what really works, because you're out there telling a story, and the story should talk about the business, not just the product there in itself. That I think always works with VCs.
I would really echo this. Having seen hundreds and hundreds of companies come from Korea to pitch to Translink in Silicon Valley. It's actually a good thing to start with a product demo. It's actually very evident on the demo whether or not this is something engaging enough and compelling. Even in the first 5 minutes, most investors have a good sense whether or not this meeting is going to go anywhere. And so I'd really encourage you to think about the timing of engaging venture capital meetings. It's always a good thing to build a network and get to know them, but if it's an official investor pitch, it's very important that you have something to show above and beyond just PowerPoint. And that could be obviously the product, it could be some traction data. Those things are very relevant because, again, you have a chance to make an impression in the first 5 minutes. Start with an impact. Start with your best foot forward. And then you'll be able to capture the attention of the venture capitalists in front of you. Okay? Saeju, I know you have tons of experience dealing with VCs, including myself. And what is your advice? 1 or 2 tips.
I think all our honorary advisors, the speakers already gave some essence. So I just want to comment a little bit. Yeah, great product and confidence like that. I think believe yourself, believe in you first. I think a lot of people don't have that high self-esteem. So believe in you, believe in your team, believe in your product. And most importantly, this is my personal philosophy, but enjoy it. Most important thing is like enjoy it every single day. With these 3 things, then it creates amazing aurora, like an aurora, aurora. It creates amazing vibe. Jay, you mentioned about it's above and beyond. Yep, there's a lot of blog, a lot of great book, a lot of success story, but it's not your story. It's you want to build your story. You write the story for yourself. It's all your company, only one in the world. That's how I believe myself and our team. And that creates amazing color, the amazing aroma. People like it. People are curious about it. Investors, partners, new talent. They want to know about you. Why you're so passionate about it? Why you're so different? And I share sincerely because there's no nothing high. It's true story. It's all yours. So you are the expert. And that's my personal philosophy, and I've been enjoying this journey, and it's amazing. Yep.
Well, thank you. So we're 10 seconds away from the Korean audience challenge, so I'm hoping that 1 or 2 will step up. I'd like to mention that I've known obviously Chang and Saeju for a while, and I can tell you very confidently they're the most shameless people that you'll meet and thick-skinned, and that's why they're successful in building companies in Silicon Valley. All right, here we go. So the time has come. We have very limited time. We're looking for 1 or 2 questions from the audience. Here we go, please. Did you hear the question? Where do you spend the most time on when you're preparing to start a company? Is it meeting people, building a product, trying to raise capital, all of the above?
I'll just say something very quickly. So as a CEO of a very small company, I sometimes find that really extremely challenging. So what I do is instead of chopping up my time for a day, from 9 to 12, I do something, and 12 to 1 something. I try to break it down a different phase. So sometimes I'm entirely focused on the product building for certain weeks, and then after we have something, then I try to concentrate more on meeting people and meeting potential investors. So I do it that way.
Any other thoughts, guys?
Just to add, by the way, your most difficult challenge is balancing for today and balancing for tomorrow. And that is and it's not a formula. You got to figure it out for your own self. So there is no real clear answer for you. It's about what needs to be done for yourself.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's 100% agree, and it depends on who do you work with. So if your co-workers and co-founders are very product-centric, then start from there a bit more, but more business. Think about what's the strength, most strengths, and focus there, and then set the priority.
Great. I know we're out of time. Let's see if there's one last question, a very quick question. Please.
만약에 네트워크도 아무도 없고 인맥도 없고 그냥 막연하게 실리콘밸리에서 사업을 하고 싶다라고 생각한 상태에서 실리콘밸리 진출한다면 가장 효과적인 방법, 예를 들어서 누구한테 컨택을 해야 된다든지 어떤 식으로 뭐 엑셀러레이팅을 참가해야 될지 가장 효과적인 방법에 대해서 한 분 한 분의 의견을 듣고 싶습니다.
Yeah, so the question is, what would be some of the tips that you would provide from somebody that came fresh off the boat from Asia, from Korea in this case, and they're trying to start a company in Silicon Valley? I think we talked a little bit about this as one of the panel questions, but maybe since we're out of time, I'd like to point this to maybe the two guys that are directly relevant to the audience, because I know Saeju and Chang, you had this experience directly.
Yeah, I was just going to say it very quickly. So I think like the accelerator program, I'm not saying just because I'm sitting next to Christine here, but could be a very good opportunity. Yeah, that was my comment.
I didn't go to school in America. I didn't speak English that much, to be honest. So when I there, I was the most desperate person in the world. So I knew that, so I didn't give up. So how I did, I think over 18 months in the beginning, I met around 1,000 people. I counted around 1,000 people. Try, meet, street, go out, ask, and if he looked like a rich guy, I talk to him. If she looked like a rich guy, I talk to her. Seriously. And meet that, go there, and if this person go to Princeton, it's my guy. Harvard, my guy. MIT, my guy. Intel, my guy. Google, my guy. Go, ask, keep doing it. Keep doing it. Don't give up. Keep doing this shit. Keep doing it. You'll meet. You'll meet. One person will connect you 10 people. 10 person will connect you 100 people, and then you'll meet like an amazingly famous guy. And you don't give up. Then you'll be. There is no lame excuse. You are Korean, so you have no network. That's a lame excuse. It's a loser. Don't give up. Yep.
Great. Thank you very much.
Jay, can I just add 3 seconds? Yeah. If you're coming from Korea, you're coming at a point of advantage. You are in a population that has immense connectivity. Mobile penetration is so high. So you are actually at a much higher level compared to the audience that in the US. So don't forget that.
Very nicely said. Well, thank you very much. If you could help me thank the panel today. I also would like to thank the audience for participating. I really appreciate the 2 gentlemen that asked the questions. I'd love to meet you afterwards so we can keep in touch. Thank you.
네, 감사합니다. 네, 정말 즐거운 세션이었던 것 같습니다. 글로벌 진출이나 실리콘밸리 진출이나 굉장히 어렵지만 계속 노크하고 끈질기게 나아가야 되는 것 같습니다. 제가 안내 말씀 2개를 드리고자 합니다. 마케팅에 고민을 하시는 분들이라면 꼭 이 세션을 들으셔야 되는데 이 오디토리엄 말고 밖에서 미니 세션이 이제 2번 열립니다. 12시랑 3시에 열리는데요. 12시에는 픽스라는 세계적인 마케팅 테크 회사가 보스턴에 헤드쿼터가 있고요. 전 세계에 이제 브랜치 오피스가 있는 회사이고요. 모바일 앱 브랜드가 비즈니스 목적을 더 빠르고 더 효율적으로 달성할 수 있도록 하는 데 의의를 두고 있다고 합니다. 30분 동안 미니 세션이 이어지니까 마케팅에 고민하고 계시는 분들이라면 꼭 들으셨으면 좋겠고요. 그리고 또 3시부터는 에드제펜이라는 에드자풍, PON이네요. 에드자pun이라는 회사에서 일본 앱스토어 시장을 목표로 하고 계시는 분들을 위한 세션이 또 열립니다. 3시부터 3시 반까지 밖에서 또 세션이 열리니까 참고 부탁드립니다. 그럼 지금부터 약 10분간 쉬는 시간을 갖고 스타트업 배틀을 시작하도록 하겠습니다. 10분 후에 다시 뵙도록 하겠습니다. 여러분 감사합니다.